Have you ever felt like your life was destined for so much more than what it currently looks like or what you're presently doing? I know I've been there before where I've gotten to a place in my life where things were stagnant or they weren't going the way that I wanted them to. And I took a look at myself and I, in my prayer time, would be talking to God. And I'm like, this cannot be all that you have for me. There's no way that this is my life. And anytime that I had those kinds of thoughts about myself, what was required for me to get out of that space of stagnancy was a shift to my mindset. And when I became a coach, I was given the actual tools, resources, and the handles for things that I already knew, this knowing that I had within myself that I didn't have words for. And going through a coach training program gave me those tools, and I was able to pinpoint, oh, that's what I'm doing. That's what's going on in my mind. And once I learned what those things were, I was able to shift my mindset in such a way that I was able to see the world differently, look at my actions and my behaviors totally differently. And therefore, from that place of consciousness and a knowing and an understanding, create a life that was more in alignment with who I am and what I want to be in this world. And I want to share with you in this episode those 4 mindset shifts that can hold you back, because I want to free you from that so that you can go out here and live your best life. So stay tuned and check me out on the other side. Welcome to the Rainbow Bridge Podcast, where we bring the Word of God to the lost and the LGBTQ. I'm your host, Nayshondra Mercer, a best-selling author, master trainer, and leadership coach, but you can call me Coach Nay. Each Sunday, we embark on a journey of faith, acceptance, and spiritual growth through heartfelt discussions, inspirational stories, and biblical teachings. I aim to bridge the gap between your faith and your identity, offering a safe and affirming space for everyone without judgment, fear, or shame. Join me as we explore the divine love that transcends all boundaries and empowers you to live life as your true, authentic self. Let's get started. Some of you might be like, what the heck is a mindset shift? And I want to just make it as simple as I possibly can. I don't want to go too in depth into all the mindset coaching, all that stuff, right? Like, I just want to give you guys some really quick things that you can hold on to so that you can implement immediately to help start shifting your mindset. And I call these GAILs. And so GAILs stands for, if you read it backwards, GAIL, and you start from the L, limiting beliefs, interpretations, assumptions, and gremlins. These are the 4 things that are holding you back from making the mindset shifts that you need in your life to see your life thrive. And I want to start with the limiting beliefs. If you've ever heard something like, girls can't play football, or boys can't play with dolls, these things that we heard as kids, or even this concept today where women can't be president. If you've heard anything like that before in your life, those are examples of limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are those things that are generalized that a lot of people believe, although they're not true. And they're usually blanket statements such as girls can't play football. And we know that that's not true. There are powder puff football teams. Women are out here playing football like it's 2024, right? Like, we know that that's not true. But anytime you fall into the trap of believing something that has been overgeneralized and is overshared, that is a limiting belief. And limiting beliefs are the things that can really keep you held from living your best life, because you begin to internalize these things. And when I say internalize, I mean you take these things that other people have said and you begin to make them your own personal truths. So you take those things into your heart and then you begin to operate from that belief. So now if you're a girl who grew up being told that girls can't grow up to be president, girls are too emotional to run an entire country, then you may grow up to be the kind of woman that doesn't seek leadership positions. You may not seek that promotion at your job because you may not think that you have what it takes, because only men do that, right? So that's the way that a limiting belief can infiltrate your mind and also your life and hold you back from the greatness that you truly are and that you're called for. The next thing that is keeping you back from living your best life is an interpretation. Now, an interpretation is just simply looking at something another way. And this one is a little bit more emotionally charged than the limiting beliefs. And as we go through the different mindsets, the 4 mindsets, each one becomes more emotionally charged than the other. So a limiting belief is just like a blanket statement, an overgeneralization that a lot of people believe in. And then the next thing is an interpretation. And so what we see in interpretations is something like, you may think that something is happening a certain way just because of the way you're looking at it. So to give you a simple example, you're driving down the highway, you are a law-abiding citizen, you are doing the speed limit, the minimum speed limit is 65, you're doing about 70. But you see somebody fly right by you on the far left-hand lane, and they're doing 85. And in your mind, you're like, this person is nuts, where are the cops? Because you're like, I'm a law-abiding citizen, you're breaking the law, somebody should come and do something about it. An interpretation, though, will challenge you to consider what else might be happening. So it could be that the reason why that person's doing 85 in the fast lane is because they have a mother in their back seat who's gone into labor and they're trying to get them to the birthing center or the hospital stat. But you think that something else is going on because that's just what you think. And so an interpretation challenges your mindset and causes you to just pause and say, okay, I think it's this, but what else could be happening? To give you another example, most of you who are here know that I spent almost 15 years in the foster care system, and I worked with the highly emotionally disturbed children who had mental, emotional, and behavioral challenges. So I worked specifically with children who had mental health diagnoses on Axis 1 and 2 on the DSM-5. Not going to get too technical with all the therapy terms, but that basically just means that they have a diagnosis, right? And so something that I experienced in my time working with foster care would be complaints from my foster parents about behaviors they were seeing in the children. And the foster parent didn't know why the behavior was happening. And they would call me like, you need to come and get your kid. Come and get so-and-so. He doing this, she doing that. I'm not dealing with it. And if you know anything about foster care, you have to go and lay eyes on both the child, the foster parent, all the other children that are in the system at least once a month, at the very least. So I would go to do my monthly visits with my kids and my foster parents, and per standards for child welfare safety, you speak to the child and you speak to the caregiver separately and alone. And of course, you don't share with one what the other one said. And so I had this situation once where I had this 2-child sibling group who I loved, these brothers, and God bless them. They came into foster care at the young ages of 3 and 4, and they stayed in the foster care system until they aged out, unfortunately. Well, the youngest of this sibling group had an issue with hoarding food. He actually was the kind of kid who, Lord help me, he would take knives and like pocket knives, and he cut a box-shaped hole in the foster parent's mattress. And in the mattress, he would hide his food and then tape it down and put the sheets and the blankets back on top of it. And the foster parent would find food and food wrappers and candy wrappers underneath this child's bed. And so I came to visit one month, and the foster parent was livid and was like, you know, I keep finding these food wrappers. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, just really annoyed with the child. And based on the way she was looking at it, she was ready for him to go. And so in that moment, I had to say to her, I get that you're frustrated, but let me share with you a little bit more background about this child that you have. And what she didn't know, because we don't always share it, was the reason that the child came into foster care, which was this child and his brother were both adopted by a cousin who very severely abused and neglected them. She would beat them, and that was when she was in the home with them. But during the times where she wasn't, she would lock them in separate rooms and leave the house for days on end. And these children had to use the restroom in bottles and buckets. And they spoke to each other through a wall because they weren't able to get out of their rooms, and they went days and days and days without any food. So when I shared this with the foster parent and let her know what you're seeing is a survival behavior. This is a child that has gone days, weeks without food, and he is making sure that he is going to be taken care of because he doesn't trust you. And when I gave this foster parent that perspective, her interpretation of the situation changed. And from that moment, we were able to come together and come up with a win-win solution that worked for both her and the child, which was he can have a shelf in the pantry and in the refrigerator with just food and snacks that are there specifically for him. And he has access to it whenever he wants to. And the only thing we ask of him is to make sure that all the wrappers go into the trash can. And once we came to that understanding, the survival behavior of him hoarding food stopped. Now, some of you might be thinking, ooh, nay, that's a little bit extreme. It can be, but it's just to give you an example of how interpretations show up in our world and what it can look like when you see behaviors that are problematic, either in yourself, your children, or the people that are in the world around you. Next is assumptions. Now, assumptions are far more emotionally charged than the limiting beliefs and the interpretations. And a lot of times the assumptions are based on doing or not doing something because of what you've already experienced in the past. So, for example, we see this show up in relationships a lot, especially romantic relationships. So if you're the kind of person who was in a relationship with somebody who was unfaithful and they cheated, you may find yourself either in that same relationship with that same person or with somebody else, and they may engage in behaviors like texting on their phone or scrolling through social media, or maybe they put their phone face down when you're having dinner. And those are the same behaviors that the person who cheated on you engaged in. So you think that this person is cheating on you, when really they're not. But because you have the past hurt and pain of this having happened to you already, you assume that it's happening again. You following me? That is the reason why my daddy always told me when I was growing up that when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. All right. And that's something that I always knew. If you're making an assumption about what somebody is or isn't doing, you are projecting your own past and your fears and your insecurities on that situation in the moment. And you're creating a situation that doesn't exist. Because now in your mind, he or she's cheating on me. And really, they may not be doing that at all. That's just your insecurity. And so assumptions can really, really hold you back from living your best life because you go into situations thinking that you've seen it already before. And there may be similarities from one situation to another, but it's best to just take note and ask questions if you need to. But we don't want to assume that the same thing is happening because it could not be true at all. The last one is the gremlin. Now, if you're about my age or older, we remember the movie The Gremlins from the 80s, them little ugly, little fur baby monsters that was out here terrorizing the world, right? The gremlin is the worst out of all four of these mindset barriers and blocks that we experience, right? Because it is the most emotionally charged. And it is called a gremlin because this is your inner talk. This is your inner talk to yourself, how you speak to yourself. And the gremlin, believe it or not, is actually here to protect you. It thinks that it's keeping you safe by telling you things like, you can't do that because the last time you failed. You're not good enough. You're not worthy of taking care of yourself and going to get your hair or your nails done. You're not worthy of taking that vacation. I mean, what do you think? Who do you think you are, thinking that you could be a manager, that you could get that promotion? Like, there's no way you can do that. Yeah, you're fat. Yeah, you're fat. Everything that your mama is saying is fat. That is the gremlin. That is your inner critic, your self-talk. And it's the track tape. I'm telling my age. I grew up on cassette tapes in the 90s. Some of you may remember the 8-track. You may remember the record. You know, we got some folks here who know about CDs, MP3 player, whatever you are, right? It's that thing that plays in the back of your mind that tells you who you are, whether you're paying attention to it or not. It's always running in the back of your mind. And when that gremlin is telling you these things, it's because it's trying to keep you safe. And what's important to remember is that it thinks it's trying to help you, but a uncontrolled self-talk can cause you to believe the things that it's telling you. And if you're in a religious or spiritual space, this is what some people can refer to as the devil, the enemy, or the inner you. Your gremlin is that other part of you, that dark piece of yourself that, if not incorporated in the right way, can hold you back because it tells you things about yourself that are not always true. So how do we overcome our gremlin? First, you got to acknowledge that it's there. You got to acknowledge that sometimes you don't talk to yourself the best way that you can. And the number one trick for that is, if you were to look yourself in the mirror and you were to have a thought about what you looked like, would you say that to your friend? Would you say that to your mom? Would you say that to your boss? Now, unless you're a complete butthead, I doubt you're just going to come out of your mouth and tell somebody that they're fat. You know, I doubt that. People have this habit of telling women they look tired, which I think is disrespectful because that's just another way of saying like you look like crap. But more often than not, most people are not going to come straight out of their mouth and say you're fat. So if you wouldn't come out of your mouth and say that to somebody that you know in your life, why do you talk to yourself like that? Knowing that the gremlin is there is the first step. Once you recognize that we all have a critical self-talk, that we have a way that we talk to ourselves, you also need to understand that it's a part of you, but it's not you. That's the second step for healing your gremlin. Recognize that it's there is number one. Number two, recognizing that it is a part of you, but it is not you. And once you know that the gremlin is not you, give it a name. That's the third tip for overcoming your gremlin. Give it a name. For me, when I was coming up, my alter ego's name was Tasha. Okay. I was a party girl back in the day. Some of you may have heard this story or not. I was a party girl in the day. I started in the teen clubs at 14 and I started in the adult clubs at 18, and I didn't get out of the clubs until I was about 25. And I was the type of girl that was always at a party. Thursday through Sunday, no matter what it was. I was in the mosh pit. I was hands on my knees, hands on the floor. Like I was backing that thing up. Okay. And when it got to the point where I started incorporating alcohol, I was always at a party and most often also intoxicated at the same time. Now, most of y'all know I don't drink anymore. Praise the Lord. Got rid of that about 2 years ago. But that was who I used to be. And that version of me, I named her Tasha. Because Tasha was a cussing, fighting something back then, y'all. I've gotten into so many bar fights in my life, I can't even count. And I'm not saying that because I'm proud of it, but I'm saying it because I'm also not ashamed of it. And I know that when we bring the dark things about ourselves into light, they no longer have power over us. And that's what you do when you name your gremlin. You recognize that it is a part of you, but it's not you, and you give it a name. So that way, when those parts of you show up that you don't like, when Tasha shows up, you can be like, all right, Tasha, I feel you. I see you. I know you're trying to help in this moment, but I don't need you right now. And that's the fourth step. After you've recognized the gremlin, you've recognized that it is a part of you, but it's not you. You've given it a name. You now have to repurpose that energy because energy is neither created nor destroyed. So the gremlin's not going to go away. Tasha's not going to go away. She's still here. Tasha is behind door number 1 at all times. And I let everybody know, the people who are close to me, who love me and know who I was back then and know who I am now. If you get ready to cross the line, I'll let you know, hey, you don't want me to open up what's behind door number 1 because Tasha going to come out. I don't have time for Tasha. You don't have time for Tasha, right? And so in that moment, you let Tasha know, you let your gremlin know, I see you, sis, but I don't need you right now. How else can you show up for me in this moment? And so Tasha may be ready to cuss and fight and carry on because she feels disrespected and she wants me to speak up for myself. But instead of allowing Tasha to show up as the cuss and fight and something that I used to be, I just tell Tasha, chill out, sis. I see you, but I don't need you right now. And instead of you showing up in the cuss and fighting kind of way, instead, I'm just going to implement a boundary, either around myself or the situation that's happening. And when you implement those 4 steps for your gremlin, you now incorporate it and the darkness, the enemy, the inner you, back into you in a way that is healthy and whole. Some of you might be thinking, that's hard work, Nay. And it is. Trust and believe it is. I just shared with you that I no longer drink alcohol, and I've not done that for the last 2 years, but it has taken me 10 years to get to this place of not drinking alcohol. The day that I made the decision that I no longer wanted to drink was not the day that I stopped drinking. And it wasn't 2 years after that, and it wasn't 5 years after that. It took me 10 years from the day that I made the decision for it to finally become my reality. So I said all that to say some of this stuff takes time, y'all. And that's why you have to give yourself grace in the process. And on top of giving yourself grace, you need the accountability. And that's where hiring a coach comes in. If you've gotten to the point where you really feel like you're being held back by the limiting beliefs and the interpretations, the past pain for your assumptions, and the critical self-talk of your gremlin, that is when it's time for you to reach out for help. The kind of people who are the kind of people that grow and go after what they want, they're the kind of people that ask for help. Because if you could have did it by yourself, you would have did it by yourself. It would have been done by now. If you could have did it on your own, you would have done it by now. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that you haven't. However, if you want to stay in that, keep doing what you're doing. Nobody's going to stop you. You're not going to stop you either. But if you want something different, it's time for you to get some help. If you're the kind of person who is tired of making excuses, you're tired of being held back by your limiting beliefs, you're tired of carrying all the hurt and pain from the things that happened to you before, you're tired of making assumptions, and you're tired of talking to yourself like you're less than, like you're not enough, like you're unworthy, and like you're unlovable, I am here for you. And I would like to invite you to seek out who you truly are underneath all your hurt and your pain. And I teach you how to do that in my course, I Am Seeking Myself. If you're new here, I Am Seeking Myself is a program that God downloaded into my heart almost 3 years ago. And I heard it very clearly. He said, create a course for people who are like you, for people who know that they're destined for more and they don't know where to start. And they don't want to relive their past. They don't want to continue to walk in generational curses such as addiction and drugging and sexing and drinking and all the things that we do to cover up the hurt and the pain. And in that moment when I heard that, I grabbed the closest thing that was to me, which was a piece of napkin and a pen, and I wrote down this course. And this course is designed to help you make the mindset shifts that you need to overcome your limiting beliefs, your interpretations, your assumptions, and your critical self-thought in your gremlins so that you can live the best life that God has called you to. If this is you and you're ready to change your mindset so that you can walk into the best version of you, the most confident and authentic version of you, check out the show notes for how you can join I Am Seeking Myself. And I'll be happy to send it to you so that you can get on your way to living your best life and being the best you that God has called you to be. All right, friends. You know the deal. Thank you for being here again for another episode of The Rainbow Bridge. I really hope that y'all are liking the direction that we're taking this thing to. And I'm hoping that you're really enjoying the tips that I've been giving you for how you can transform your mind and change your mindset. Remember, I'm always here for you. You can catch me on Instagram at CoachNay_. Feel free to reach out to me there. You can hit me on my DMs. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss another episode from the Rainbow Bridge and hearing from me. And do me a favor and drop me a review. Let me know in the comments on Spotify how this episode blessed you, how you're incorporating these new tips into your life, and what you want to hear more of. I like for this to be a two-way conversation, but that can only happen if you talk to your girl. So drop me a review, leave me a comment. I read every single one. I can't wait to hear from you. And you already know the deal. Until next time, my friends, be safe and be well.
This has been a Forecast Media Podcast Network presentation. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. For more information and more great Forecast Media content, visit pushplaypods.com.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.